Welcome. This is the second ReadWriteMix of 2014. For those of you who are not familiar with ReadWrite, we are a technology publication. We actually turned 11 years old this April. We're really excited about our birthday coming up. And we are very grateful to our parent company, Save Media. This is our headquarters, and they have given us safe space so that we can hold ReadWriteMix. So thank you, Save. And thank you all for coming here tonight. But you're really going to be excited for the inventor you're here to see, Eric Migicovsky, CEO of Pebble. Ramona, are you joining us? She usually jumps on stage at some point. Come on, you know you want to. There you go. So, let me start off with a question for the audience. Who here is wearing a Pebble right now? Raise your hand. All right, cut the lights. Okay, now you know what to do, Pebblers. Shake it. Let's see that backlight. Right on. All right, let's bring the lights back on. So for those of you who are totally confused by what just happened, Eric, what is a smartwatch?
What is a smartwatch? Well, I guess 6 years ago it would have been something a little bit different.
Made by Microsoft.
Made by yes, well, that was about 10 years ago. Yeah, those were the days. Nowadays, a smartwatch is something that a wearable computer that people wear that connects to the internet, usually through a smartphone, and brings information ambiently to your wrist and really onto your body. So Pebble is a smartwatch that works with iPhone and Android smartphones, and it brings notifications, alerts, emails, as well as a whole bunch of different apps onto your body.
And those apps are really a point of differentiation for Pebble, because we've heard a lot of noise about kind of wearable platforms, but you have an app ecosystem operating today.
Starting to. We just launched our app store two months ago now. So it's coming along. It's pretty early stages even for us, and I think it's encouraging to see not just the people here who've already written apps and show me apps that are running on Pebble, but the fact that there are a lot of people hacking and building on the platform all around the world. When we launched on Kickstarter 2 years ago, it's almost exactly 2 years ago, we had no clue how much people would be interested in hacking on their devices. We had launched a watch previous to that had an SDK that was slightly alpha. It was almost like an Arduino. You had about 10 kilobytes worth of free space to code your app in. Now it's a little bit more. But yeah, we just didn't really expect the sheer enthusiasm that people had. It's been great because it started off as a product that offered notifications and emails and alerts and a bit of sports and fitness stuff on your wrist. But there's Bitcoin wallet apps that I saw today, medical alert bracelet sort of apps for your Pebble, and every day I kind of log on to the app store and see a new app come up. It's pretty cool.
That must be a good feeling. How many developers do you have so far? Again, it's early days.
There's around 13,000 or 14,000 developers who've been active in the last 2 or 3 months.
Wow, that's for something that's only been around for 2 months.
Yeah.
And how many Pebbles are there out there? What's the market for these developers?
There are, as of today, over 400,000 Pebbles in the field. And that's been over the last 13 or 14 months so far.
So big numbers for a new category, but compared to the other devices that are smartphones and tablets,
something like 700 million Android phones shipped last year or something like that. Yeah, we've got a ways to go. I think I'm very hesitant to say that we have shown some early success, and I think in some ways validated this section of the market that we're in. But I'm looking forward to the next step, and I think you hit on it right at the beginning, which is the idea that this is a platform. It's not something that's just going to be a single product necessarily sitting on your wrist. But we launched our second product in January, and it's going to be really interesting to see where it goes.
So the second product, that's a Pebble Seal. I am sporting the original Pebble. I actually kind of like the chunky plastic look, but are you finding more people are opting for this deal even?
Yeah, around 60% of our customers on our website right now are picking up this deal.
And so 60%, so the majority are actually going for the higher end product.
Yeah, it might also be because it's not available in stores yet, but that's how it goes.
And speaking of, you recently launched the Pebble in some Target stores.
Yeah, all Target stores actually. We're going to be rolling out over the next month or two.
And that's on top of your first retail partner with Best Buy.
Yeah, and retail has been interesting. I mean, so we launched on Kickstarter, so it was very much like the expansion that we had in the early days was 100% a factor of our success. Figuring out how to kind of market the product to the world, really. I mean, more than, I think around 45% of our backers on Kickstarter came from outside of the US. So it's not particularly an American or US-based product at all. On our website now, we do 60 to 70% of our traffic is outside of the US. We ship to 150 countries around the world. And I think it's a sign that hardware is not something that's going to start in one particular country and then kind of like slowly work its way out. It's going to be worldwide right from the get-go. I mean, just look at some of the major names that came off of Kickstarter itself. We just got our Form 1 printer in the mail, which is this like beautifully designed, amazingly fine, high-quality 3D printer that was $3,000 or something like that, which is a steal compared to, I think, the big 3D printers are still $20,000 to $30,000, if not more. That came directly from these MIT Media Lab hackers that built what we're using for prototyping on the next generation of stuff.
And that's going out in the world. So
Yeah.
The good thing is you have a local market. The bad news is you kind of have global competition. Yeah, global competition. And not just the big guys. I mean, so let's talk about that for a moment. Of course. As you referenced, people were attempting this kind of smartwatch idea. At least kind of the
Did anyone own a Spot, Microsoft Spot?
Microsoft Spot. Anyone want to confess?
We have one or two in the office.
Let me tell you, you are a real wearable.
Yeah, so the idea of competitors in the space is not something completely new. When I started working on this in 2008, I built it because there was nothing that I really saw in the market that I wanted. Sony Ericsson had partnered with Fossil to create this kind of like fancy analog digital watch that cost $399. And it was cool. It only had 10-character displays which showed you who was calling. It wasn't really built for the smartphone age. And so when we started working on it back in 2008, we were saying, okay, well, what if we reimagined the smartwatch for a smartphone that would be paired with a smartphone? And we built it for ourselves. We really just wanted it. It was a product that we wanted. And then we started showing it off to people. I was based in Waterloo, Ontario at the time, which is the home of BlackBerry, Research in Motion. We started showing it around people, and we ended up, our first product exclusively worked with BlackBerry devices.
Wow.
So that was
this the Impulse?
Yeah, it was the Impulse. 2008,
actually
Raptors
had one.
used 2008 era for being, not as future size.
Actually, people make this mistake. They look at BlackBerry now and they think it was always down to the dumps, but it actually was on this phenomenal growth.
Oh yeah, they were kicking ass in 2008. Everyone had a
Through
BlackBerry.
2010, and it took that long for the iPhone to kind of
Come up to speed.
cut their knees out from under them.
We came down and we did Y Combinator in 2011, and then we saw this thing called the iPhone. A lot of people were using it, and we decided that the next version of our product would work with that.
It is interesting that when you're in Canada surrounded probably
By people were using BlackBerries, yes.
Yeah, that shapes your
They still do. I was back in Vancouver, and I've never seen so many BlackBerries.
Yeah,
What's interesting is that
it always kind of makes me scratch my head when I go to New York and I see these weird devices.
I heard that BlackBerry's are coming out with the Bold 9900 again or something like that, which is a great phone, but they're actually like stopping selling, or like they're bringing back the old operating system or something like that because people love the keyboards and love the like original BlackBerry.
I had a Trio for a long time, and I thought I could never give up the keyboard. I also actually wrote on ReadWrite last year an open letter to people like you, and I said, hands off my wrists. I do not want wearable devices. And here I am wearing 2 of them. This is your fault, Eric Migicovsky. I'm sorry. How dare you make a device so good that I actually want to wear it?
We've been, I think that, and that's an interesting point. So a lot of people ask, like, people aren't wearing watches. Why are you making a product that people aren't going to want because no one's wearing watches? And I think it's interesting. I actually view it kind of as an opportunity. If people aren't wearing watches, then we don't have a competitor that we have to dethrone to get onto their wrist. That's the optimistic way of looking at it. Obviously, the pessimistic way is that people use cell phones. And so I think what we had to do, what we had to prove, is that there was so much more value for putting something smart on your wrist than just being able to dig your phone out of your pocket. And so it was up to us to define what that category would be. And so we're still doing it. I mean, it's a work in progress as usual.
Yeah.
But I'd say it's coming along.
It's so interesting when I started testing the Pebble. I thought I would use it primarily as a fitness device. That's kind of my passion right now. I'm writing a lot about that for ReadWrite. And I downloaded some apps. I tried it out. Some things were interesting, like a Tabata timer for high intensity interval training. But I found actually that the core functions, the notifications, and the phone calls were so much more useful to me. In fact, I feel like the phone calls come to my Pebble faster than they light up my phone.
Possible.
And I'm not sure how you work that magic, but it's starting to get that point where it's more useful at certain functions of the phone than the phone itself.
So that's something that we had to deal with. And so I was talking about why people put it on their wrist and why we're kind of getting watches back on people's wrists. What's interesting is that for each and every person, there's different things that they do. Even when it comes to notifications, people have different use cases. Some people love getting their Google Hangouts notifications on their wrist, and other people just turn off everything but phone call notifications. I think that's really cool. I think that if we can create a product that provides value to different people kind of on their terms, then that's something that we want to make. We'd love to make a product that kind of meshes into your life, and rather than forcing you to kind of conform to the product, it really just lets you live your life in a little bit of a better way. And so over time, secretly Pebble, will do more and more things in your daily life. But at least it's useful in those first couple of days of trying them.
Yeah, that's getting that first day experience, I think, is really key. Bluetooth World is a conference that is taking place this week. We have a reporter down there, and there's a lot of talk about Bluetooth right now, whether it is holding back the wearables movement. Do you have a point of view on that?
I think it's holding back. We've got a couple people up there as well. No, I mean, Bluetooth is amazing. We couldn't do what we're doing 5 years ago because for 2 reasons or 3 reasons. One is people didn't have a connection to the internet that they're carrying around in their pocket, and now pretty much everyone does, except for underground. So
Yeah.
LTE doesn't work too well. Battery life technology has come a long ways, and I mean, sure, there's a lot to be said for an organization that has a special interest group, the Bluetooth SIG, that controls a lot of the profiles and support. But things are moving. Like Apple pushed Bluetooth LE really far forward last year when they released the Apple Notification Center service, which is a Bluetooth LE protocol that enables any Bluetooth LE device to pair with your. So someone's tweeting at us and we're getting the notifications at the same time.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's great. You guys were both playing.
Yeah, they're both.
Actually, what's great is I'm going to be taking questions via Twitter, and a colleague is going to be sending those to me via Google Hangouts. So I'll be getting that right on my wrist. It's, we couldn't do this in ReadWriteMix without
And so people who are tweeting, they probably see your message pop up right there.
Yeah, so it's great instant gratification.
But going back to the LE thing, Bluetooth LE, I totally believe is going to do a lot to change the world. I think that there's going to be more and more sensors and clothing and items in your daily life that use LE, iBeacon and other things. And one of the really cool things about Pebble is since it has a Bluetooth LE radio in it and it can talk to LE devices, we haven't rolled out the APIs yet, but it's in the works. Like we're planning to enable Pebble to talk directly to heart rate monitor straps, bicycle power sensors, iBeacons. Pretty much our goal is to figure out what are the devices that add context to your life, like what indicates where you are, what you're doing, or what devices you're working with, and how can those be controlled or integrated somehow into Pebble.
So that's interesting. It's sort of like, if you think about the early days of PDAs, they were always synced to a PC. The Palm Pilot had
Well, Newton was similar. It didn't actually sync too
Right.
well.
All of those devices which try to be independent fail. Right now, the Pebble is very dependent on the smartphone, but you're saying that it could become more and more independent, sort of like the iPhone for that matter. You had to sync with iTunes in the early days. Now everything's over the cloud.
I think that's fair, and I think it's kind of natural because what we're doing is building kind of the first operating system that's purpose designed for a wearable platform. Like even when you look at some of the competitors like Google, Android, Wear, I mean they're kind of using the existing older generation technology and trying to put it into a new form factor, and that rarely works. I mean there's a lot of things that come. There's a lot of opportunity when you have a new form factor to kind of just create different user experiences and experiment. I think you hit the nail on the head with talking about Palm Pilot. It wasn't a desktop operating system. It wasn't something that in the early days pushed personal, and computing forward. It was really like this new operating system that ran on a Dragon Ball AE processor with like a miniature amount of RAM. That really.
It was a Motorola processor.
Yeah, they used the same processor for like eight years straight or something like that.
It might have run a Mac like a decade before.
And what's interesting is now we have practically the same processor on Pebble. So if you look at it, Mac to pocket computer to wearable, it's kind of interesting.
It's just shrinking it down.
Yeah, and soon we're going to have like 8-bit processor, well, 32-bit processors running.
So you actually view Bluetooth as an enabler, and you don't feel like it's moving too slowly.
I think what's cool with Bluetooth LE is that a lot of the profiles are built on top of the base, the core specs. You don't have to really wait for the same to kind of catch up. But maybe upstairs, somewhere at the conference they're actually working very hard.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And so you do view a future where the Pebble is not kind of tied to the.
Yeah, so for example, there's like this awesome app called Pebble Bucks, which is a Starbucks app for Pebble, where you can actually pay for Starbucks. Like if you go for a run, you can just swipe your Pebble and pay at Starbucks using the barcode from your watch. But why does that have to come from your phone? Why can't it be enabled at the Starbucks location, just served via some sort of like iBeacon Bluetooth LE system? That's something that we're investigating and figuring out how we can play a pretty important role.
And I understand those routers are coming. So the idea is your simple device uses Bluetooth to communicate to a hub.
There's different progressions. Like it starts with the most basic case, which is the Pebble recognizing that there's an iBeacon around you. That's kind of the first thing that we'll be looking at, and then over time, definitely looking at more routing scenarios and stuff like that.
And I think that it's very interesting to think about what kind of devices we can enable by not having to pair with them.
Also think about how a lot of devices that have sensors are not really in a good spot to have a display. Like say for example, if you're wearing some sort of like Under Armour clothing that monitors your stress level and your heart rate, you don't really want to have a display built into your spandex or something like that. It would be much more awesome if you could just relay the information to something that you're wearing already.
Yeah.
And so we're paying close attention to that.
This is my big frustration right now is I just want to get the heart rate from a device on my chest to a device on my wrist.
It's coming.
And it's just, I don't understand why this is so hard.
Well, there are, not to recommend other products until there are some other products that do that. They're just super closed, like you couldn't write an app there that consumes that heart rate data, which is crazy. I mean, it just makes sense that now that we have wearable computing that you can hack on, it would make sense that you could just customize that display or write your own app or something like that, or even download a friend's app. Like that, that's the best sort of display for that situation.
That openness creates possibilities.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Pebble business. You have actually been profitable for almost a year now.
Probably since the day that we went on Kickstarter.
That's amazing.
Up until that point, for 4 years, we were not much profitable.
So there is that to make up. But,
Yes.
You still have a lot of unsold alert impulses.
There are a couple impulses lying around the office, mainly as a sign to an entrepreneur like I was, to not overbuild your inventory. It's one of the biggest lessons that I ever learned. Very nearly killed the company, but like you gotta be careful.
So you actually keep this around as kind of a
They
lesson.
were part furniture at the house office that we had. We just put like a table over top and
Yeah.
it was
That's a good lesson
with you. It's physically there reminding you that you have like $150,000 worth of products under your table. Maybe will be actually worth something in the future. That'd be pretty cool.
Collector's items.
Yeah.
Maybe you can use the eBay app on Pebble to sell them.
We give them away, like, people come by for a hackathon at Pebble. We give them a nice little memento from the past. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's fun. I actually picked one up when I visited your office. Speaking of my visit to Pebble headquarters, I was very surprised to see your return there. I was expecting stacks and stacks, just this year volume.
Yeah, we do all of our returns and warranty stuff through the office right now. So maybe someday, hopefully not, we'll have to provide up to the office for doing that. But yeah, for now it's kind of managed. And again, it's kind of that similar lesson that if you have your mistakes, and we do view kind of like every time that we have to like return or replace or something with Pebble, it's kind of like us screwing up a little bit. And having that in the office is a present saying like, this is what you did. And you can improve if you see that rate slow down or stop.
It's very close to the front entrance. I mean, you pretty much have to walk past it.
There's actually, I would never say that we got this from, but I'm just thinking now back to this story that I read about Word Perfect from the 80s, like the early days. They actually had their call center for questions and comments right in the middle of the bullpen, so that engineers and people and product managers around would kind of be forced to overhear the conversations that customer support was having with their users, and not because people would just be waiting to hear what users said, but kind of doesn't feel that we're all in it together, and unless we all work hard to make the product better, we're stuck with it.
There's a company called Qualtrics which actually takes that a step further, and if the volume of calls to their call center gets too high, everyone's desk starts ringing, and they're like alerts in the office. It's in the office.
Yeah, I guess we could do something crazy with people's Pebbles vibrating on their wrist.
Exactly. Yeah, that would be cool. I bet you got some folks around the office who can write that.
Yeah, we've got some hack days that will definitely do some fun stuff like that. Actually, currently the hack that we're thinking about doing a little bit with Bluetooth LE is it's definitely a first world problem. So we don't have that much space. We're growing a lot. The office is packed. We have only 5 or 6 conference rooms, and they have glazed windows on the doors instead of like see-through windows. So you're always guessing who's in which conference room. And we're going to build an app where you can actually detect based on where whose Pebbles are in the room, who's in each conference room. Like I said, first world problem.
That's great. Why not use your technology? You have become something of a Kickstarter guru. I think there are some folks working on crowdfunded projects
I've only done one Kickstarter. There's many more people who have done one Kickstarter.
But there are folks here in the audience I know who kind of come to hear your thoughts on crowdfunding.
I think crowdfunding, it's changed a lot even in the last 2 years since we launched, for better or for worse. I think that there's been a ton of examples of companies and people that have made amazing products and launched them through crowdfunding. There's different options now. It wasn't, at the time Indiegogo was starting out, I guess Kickstarter to be honest as well. There's a ton of different options. People are doing really interesting things around crowdfunding. They're running their own campaigns. There's crowdhoster where you can actually run your own crowdfunding campaign, kind of like AWS, where you just start it up. You don't have to be on someone else's platform. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I back a lot of projects on Kickstarter.
Oh, that's great. Do you view that as having payback to the Kickstarter community?
Slightly, and also there's just a cool stuff. I'm currently waiting on this paper airplane that has a little motor on the front, and so you can fly. I don't even know if it's like servo actuated, but it's like a remote control paper airplane, and it was like $40. Hopefully we'll ship sometime in the future.
That's great. That brings up a point though about Kickstarter and crowdfunding. Do you feel, is your sense from your Kickstarter community, did people want the device, or were they supporting your vision? Were they just trying to get the latest cool gadget?
I'd say most people were, the vast majority were trying to do that to get some cool stuff out of everyone else. But even then, I think we won over some confidence in the idea that we're working on something from the future, and our backers were the ones who enabled that future to be made. So we went through this process where we would post updates every 2 to 3 weeks about our progress through our Kickstarter learned some lessons from other people's Kickstarters. I think one of the first things I learned was that you probably shouldn't change the design after launching on Kickstarter. I saw that happen a lot, and that was always something sad because 50% of the people would love the new design, and 50% of the people want the old one, and you just can't afford to make
What else were they buying it on? Like, they had to look at something and that prototype design.
But it's weird, even down to like small changes, like tiny, minute things. People would, the internet is very vocal, and sometimes it speaks very strongly. We were happy though that through some complete luck of the manufacturing draw, we were able to make a product that looked quite similar to what we promised, except for a couple, little variants down the road. Some of the lessons we learned were about color promises, and did we learn a lesson there?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of, you hear Apple, like, I think Johnny Ive has talked about how it's so hard to get that.
Yeah, who would have thought that white would be hard to make, but yeah, we'd walk around.
Apple spent years trying to do a white iPhone thing.
We promised to do 5 different colors in our Kickstarter campaign. In hindsight, probably wouldn't have done that. Probably would have helped us less.
Well, and, maybe it's because it's ReadWrite's logo, but I am a fan of the cherry.
I'm a fan of red too. I have 2 pebbles. I have a couple steel, black pebbles, but I wear 2 different pebbles, a red one and a brushed stainless steel.
What's your thought on the attempt to make wearables fashion? Is that really the right way to think about them?
It's a completely valid point. It's something that you wear on your wrist. It's something that's very visual. That's out there. It's usually an expression. Probably men's last chance to put like jewelry on their body somewhere. So I wouldn't dismiss the fact that fashion and style are extremely important. I think that as a small company, we're doing what we can. We're coming with products, fairly quickly on a rapid iteration cycle, and we're, I think, figuring out what we can do as a small company in this space to maximize how many people would be interested in putting something like this on the wrist. We're looking at customization as one of our major advantages. Before we create a product, we actually publish the 3D design files on GitHub so that anyone can download the external files and create their own straps or bands or mic mounts or bangles or covers or strap or kind of like sticky wraps. One of my favorite stories kind of in the Pebble universe is this guy named Drew who started a Kickstarter after ours to make these snap-on Pebble covers. It's called pebblecovers.com. And he raised $13,000 on Kickstarter. He didn't have to buy a 3D printer. He was 16. It was his summer project, so he bought a 3D printer, started printing off hundreds, probably thousands of these things, and continues to sell them on his website. I think he earns $500 to $1,000 per month just selling Pebble covers that he makes using on his Makerbot. It's pretty cool.
So you put this out on GitHub. You've taken a very different approach from, say, Apple, that's the made for iPod.
Yeah, so they do the same thing, but you have to like sign NDAs in. We actually got the idea from Apple since we are made for iPhone people. We signed all the NDAs and we did all that hard work, but we realized that it was pretty cool. Once you do get the design files, you can pretty much make stuff. Through Apple's program, you actually have to get each and every single item that you made approved by them, which is kind of annoying. But yeah, we just threw it up.
And so you're not too worried about charging like licensing fee for.
We're building a platform. Our goal is to spread the Pebble OS message far and wide. That's why we're really happy with having like a nice entry-level price point into the market. That's why we're really happy that people and product, and there's people and products that are customizing Pebble to kind of make it their own. One of our favorite things to ask on Twitter is just like for people to take a picture of their Pebble. Everyone has a different watch face practically, and some people have different straps and different customizations that they've made. I think the World Cup's coming up. A lot of people are going to be wearing like watch faces that supported their team, or even covers on top of their Pebble.
Before we take questions, I want to ask one question about the watch face designer you found in Poland.
Yeah.
And I understand he's now an employee, or he's been coming on board for a while.
Internship in this summer. His name is Lucas, and he's written some of the top Pebble apps. If anyone has downloaded an app called Modern Watch Face, which is this beautiful
What do you think about Android entering the wearable technology? Do you think the same trend, what happened with BlackBerry, there was proprietary operating systems, and then kind of, iOS and Android kind of dominating the smartphone space? Do you see the same thing happening in wearable technology?
I think that Google's Wear platform is definitely one of the more credible competitors we've had over the 6 years that we've been doing this. There have been a large number. There's been Samsung, LG, Sony, Prada even came up with a smartwatch. So the idea of competitors in the space is nothing particularly new. Obviously, this is Google's first attempt at a smartwatch, and we're paying close attention to what they do. Obviously, we downloaded the Wear SDK and tried it out. It's interesting. I think it definitely provides like a different vision for wearables than the one that we're going down, where we think of it more as like an open platform that people can hack on and kind of make their own. I think they're proceeding with a little bit more of a closed idea. I think that's kind of a reaction to where Android's gone. Like you think that Android is this amazing open platform, but in reality, Samsung and Amazon have forked Android and kind of like taken Google out of the picture. I think they're with Android Wear reacting against that. The idea that they've lost control in some ways of Android and they're a little bit unhappy. And I think they're going to kind of lurch back to the other way with Android Wear and really try to regain that control.
All right, and then we've got the question in the fourth row.
Hi, now that you're going more mainstream with Target, what's your marketing and advertising strategy? Are you going to continue to try to go viral? Are you going to spend money on media blitzes or look for partners to do it?
That's a good question. We've been kind of lucky, quite lucky so far, partially through, I think, a product that has a couple, quite simple and compelling reasons why people could buy it. That's helped us immensely. One of the biggest lessons that I ever learned in the kind of marketing space, and granted I'm not the best marketer or anything like that, but Paul Buchheit wrote a blog post that talks about the three things. Talks about how, as a startup making a product, you should focus on building something that you could describe in 3 easy statements. And that stuck with me. I think that our Kickstarter video and the page, one of the reasons why it was successful is because we stuck to that rule of like 3 things: notifications, sports and fitness, and customization, and just kind of like stuck to that and pitched that over and over again. And it worked. We're working to see what those next three things for that next generation of consumer will look like. But one of the things that we have on our side is 400 or 400,000 really engaged users who are telling us on a daily basis what they do with the product, what apps come out, which apps in the Pebble ecosystem go viral. Like Tiny Birds, which is a Flappy Bird clone for Pebble, was launched within like a week. There were 20,000 downloads of it, and that was interesting. I think little things like that. We actually do most of our business on our website, actually, which makes it much more easy for us to manage that marketing effort by getting ads out or figuring out what causes people to buy Pebble that week.
All right, we have a question from Twitter. Quinn Wageman wants to know, how critical is the integration of cellular chips into smartwatches? Is that going to happen? Does that mean?
So it's already happened. There are quite a few wearables that you probably haven't heard of that include cell phone chips in watches. It may happen more in earnest in the future when the power consumption comes down. But right now, the fact of the matter is that an LTE radio that you need does draw quite a bit of power. So not to say that it's never going to happen. I think that I would never say something's not going to happen. That hasn't proved to be too successful in the past for a lot of people. I think that right now, Pebble works really well in this kind of asynchronous mode where when it's not connected to your phone, it lets you run some fitness tracker apps, like there's a swimming tracker app where you can go swimming and it uses the accelerometer in Pebble to track the number of strokes every time you do a flip. And then when you walk back to the locker room, it reconnects to your phone, uploads that data to the internet, gets crunched in the cloud, and comes back. And so I think what we're walking, and kind of to differentiate us from some of the other platforms, is this really interesting vision of a computing platform that can work separate from the internet, but then when it gets back in connection, it kind of spools that information back up to the net to work with apps that run in the cloud. So I think it's the best of both worlds. potentially.
Let me just repeat the question. Do you see native apps taking over?
And like first-party native apps.
Yeah.
So we're a small team. We only have around 80 people at the company right now, which is a lot more than last year, which is really cool. But still, like very early. And I think one of the testaments to what an open platform does is in the 2 months since the App Store launched, there's over 2,400 apps on the App Store. And there's no way that we could have built that. You know, we do our part, I think, by building a strong platform that developers can build on top of. We're not saying no, again, to building first-party apps, but I think we've got our work cut out for us, creating a strong platform that's useful out of the box, that can just get better as more and more people hack and build on top of the platform. You know, one of the questions that we haven't answered is how does incentivization work on the Pebble platform for third-party developers? Over time, you'll see us roll some stuff out. You know, right now, there's some people that are hacking their way through. They either sell a companion app on iPhone or Android that works with the Pebble app, or some people receive Bitcoin donations right through their Pebble app. But it's a good question. I think over time, native apps from third parties will probably become more and more important part of the Pebble ecosystem.
And then we'll take another question from Twitter. Have you entertained an acquisition offer from Apple?
I can't comment on any acquisition talks or anything like that. But I mean, what I can say about that is, I don't think Apple acquired us. I mean, they don't really acquire products; they acquire services and products that they can later integrate into their systems.
And small team.
And small teams, I know. So, I mean, but in terms of acquisitions, then I think our goal as a company is very much, I mean, unfulfilled. Like I said at the beginning, some early success, but our vision has a long way before it gets played out. Our vision of a platform that people can hack on and wear and use kind of on a daily basis. We've got a hell of a lot of work to do, and we're not going to stop until we get it done. And that's kind of the unifying factor of the people at Pebble is that, you know, it's almost like something we take for granted that we're the ones that get to design the future of wearable computing. I mean, there's some teams within other companies, but I get the feeling that they're probably stymied quite a bit by bureaucracy and, you know, are we going to compete with our own products? I've never actually had the chance to work with large companies, so maybe that's also it. But I feel like we have, it's like our opportunity to take right now.
And I see we have a question up here. If you could just wait until Alyssa brings the mic. And then I think we've got time.
I've got a question. How many people work at hardware startups? That's awesome.
Good number of hardware hackers. That's pretty cool. Right up. Yes, ma'am. Your question.
I have two questions. At the CES, you had discussed with lots of big manufacturers such as European car companies. Can you tell us about, Pebble and big companies cooperation? And second question is that, can you talk about, maybe too early because you said 80 people working for you, but international market because I am writing for Japanese market or Japanese.
They're both really good questions. First question was about working with larger companies, and we've started to do that. It was something that we didn't do at the beginning because we had the goal of getting our units out to our Kickstarter backers, and that was kind of like the only thing that we could really deal with until we did that. Since then, we started kind of like, it's an open platform. So for example, the Mercedes app that they wrote for Pebble, we didn't really know that they wrote it until they emailed us and said, hey, we're these developers that work for Mercedes. We wrote an app that works with Pebble. Would you guys be interested in trying it out? And we said, yeah. And so we started working with them, and Miriam, our product evangelist, actually got the chance to drive Mercedes around for a while and use it with the app, which was really cool. There's a number of larger companies that have started working with us, GoPro, Foursquare, iControl. It's fun. It's great to see the idea that we started with quite a few years ago take hold and really represent. It's more than just us; it's other people pushing it forward as well, which is awesome. In terms of international expansion, we do ship internationally from our website, but we haven't really expanded to retail around the world. And one of the things that's holding us back there is our lack of support for Chinese, Japanese, and Korean character sets. So that's something that we got to do. It's something that we're working on. We just have to accomplish. And after that gets done, we support Unicode. It's some work that we're working on right now.
All right, let's see, I see a question right here.
Run a quick censure. You talked a lot about consumer use cases. Are there any enterprise use cases that either real or hypothetical that you're excited about for smartwatches?
I'm excited that it's an open platform that people can hack on and at some points not even tell us what they're doing with it. I think there's a couple, I'm sure there's a couple of Pebbles that, you know, anything from consulting firms to three-letter agencies that are using them. And we don't even have to know. I mean, people can make apps and just use them amongst their enterprises. I know that there's a lot of people that are looking for Pebble to be used at conferences, you know, as schedulers and reminders and kind of like custom schedule person. I think access control is something really interesting on Pebble. Authentication, there's quite a few authenticator apps that show 8-digit codes on your wrist when you're logging in. That's cool. Presence indicators with BTLE on Pebble, you can practically act as an indicator of who that person is. Like security is something you know, it's something you have, and something on your wrist is definitely something you have. But I'd be keen to chat about it. Right? We have a legion of business guys that are totally keen on hacking this kind of stuff.
Say,
There's some
question.
people.
Yeah.
All right, and then we've got a question for Twitter, and then we'll have the last one.
I'm with Ovidius, a vision chip company, and I wanted to ask what your thoughts are on vision. It's a display, but what about
What our
camera
vision is
sensors?
on
Camera
vision?
sensors. Do they have any use for that?
What is our vision on that?
Right now, Pebble controls cameras. But
Yeah.
There's not a camera in the hardware.
It's true. I think it's kind of a testament to the fact that we look at the power of connecting to other devices more than the idea that Pebble has to do everything itself. I think that there's plenty of really good cameras in your life, probably one of your chipsets in other amazing products that we are carrying around today. I think that, you know, given the right technology, it's something that we might do, but it's probably just one of a laundry list of things that we could put in the watch that we haven't yet. Mainly because we think, like I said, that there's just other products that do it better that we can potentially work with.
Let's see, a question from Twitter from Jennifer Shanks. She wants to know what you're doing to deal with notification overload.
It's a good question. I mentioned before that not everyone uses their tablet the same way. A lot of people just use it for very particular notifications. If you're on iOS and you use an app called Couple, which is a social network for two, then Pebble becomes this really cool, intimate connection with your partner, where you may not get other notifications from the people sent to your watch, but you will when you get a notification from your spouse or your partner or something like that. So I think there's a lot of creative ways. I think that my personal view is that technology shouldn't really change your own personal habits, and it should, in fact, just mesh into the life that you already happen to live very nicely in a lot of cases. And so it's up to us, you know, this is a job that's not finished at all, but to offer the customizability and the options for people to kind of like craft their own notification existence around what they actually care about. And then it becomes better, like even though there are a lot of notifications that come through on your phone, every time that I scroll down the top bar of my Android, I see just a billion notifications for all kinds of stuff. But when I get an important one, I see it on my wrist and I can immediately consume it and see it and see what's going on.
So we'll need to craft our kind of notifications, which right now that feels like, to me, it feels like a bit of an imposition to figure out the settings. Will Pebble one day be able to figure out what notifications to show us?
I think context is really key. So there's different notification types that are important to you at different times of the day, different times of your life, different places that you're at. And I think one of the things that we are working on, is figuring out how context can help inform which apps and which notifications end up showing up on your watch. Because at the end of the day, we want the watch to be the most useful experience for you at that given time, at that given place. That basically, for the current situation, your watch has to be awesome. And that task is not done. It's an ongoing task, but it's something that we're working really hard on.
Let's see, and I think we'll take one more question. So,
What have been the advantages and disadvantages of working with the e-ink display, and do you plan to change that ever?
the advantages and disadvantages of working with the e-ink display.
So we don't actually have an e-ink display. Ink is a brand name watch, at least it's showing notifications and it's showing the time all the time. You don't have to press a button and click erase or something to get the watch to show the time. I really like that. I think customers really like that, and it's something that we're quite proud of.
So I think, unfortunately, we're out of time.
I'll be hanging out.
Yeah, Eric will be hanging out if you have more questions for him. I think some of the takeaways are you really have to balance and make choices. Battery life versus.
Yeah, and it's even more so when you're on someone's body like this.
It's a series of trade-offs that we're discovering in this wearable world. All right, Eric, thank you so much.